All right, there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We're back with my next guest, the truly wonderful, the amazing, the Australian artist, the princess of R&B, which I have to say, low key, I love that moniker as like the princess of R&B. Emalia is with us. I was like, as I was doing the intro, I realized I should have asked if I pronounced your name correctly or not. So awesome. Awesome. Emalia is here. You may have seen her through, because you do everything low key, which is very impressive. I sit and I talk into a mic for a bit, and then you act, you sing, you make albums. Your most recent Supreme EP came out. Paper Dolls is out as well. Yeah, just honestly, I look at what you do and I'm like, I don't know how you have time.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, neither do I. Just somehow it all happens. I don't know how I make it work. But thank you. That was a very epic intro.
My pleasure. I wish I could say it was well planned. As you could see, I was like just fumbling to put it together, but I think it sounded pretty good. I'll give myself props for that.
All right. It sounded, you know what you were talking about. You've done your homework.
Yeah, just a little bit, just enough to sound mildly professional. But let me ask you about the timing piece, because like you are a person outside of just your career. Like you have family, friends, relationships that you want to keep up. Like, how do you manage to do all those things? I feel like it's a never-ending juggle.
It is a never-ending juggle. I feel like I'm still working on the balance. I am a bit of a workaholic, honestly. I really struggle to shut off and switch off from work. And I think particularly with music, because it's never ending. Like I'm always creating and I'm always coming up with ideas, and there's always some aspect of it to work on, whether it's like the rollout strategy or content or whatever it is. I just never can shut off. And it'll even be, it's midnight, or like you're out somewhere with friends for dinner, and then I have this lyric idea, or I remember that I forgot to send an email, or like, whatever it is. So I never fully shut off. And it's something I've been working on this year, to be honest, because last year was such a big year for me. But I try to commit to making sure at least once a week I catch up with a friend I haven't seen in a while. I like to see my family at least once a month. I try and prioritize that because I love them to bits. So I'll travel to see them, or they'll travel to see me. Like I was just with them yesterday. We had a great lunch out. They brought the doggo up. I got to see the family dog for a bit. So yeah, it's just like making time for what's important to you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it must be really hard to switch off. Like I don't know. For me personally, I struggle to switch off as well, but putting the phone away is very helpful.
Yeah. Do you have like a routine that you have where at night you like put it in a different room? Because I've seen that recommended and I do not have the discipline for that.
No, I don't do that. I put it on airplane mode so it doesn't go off in the middle of the night.
That's good.
So that is somewhat helpful. I guess it depends how stressed I get. When I'm like, when I've got things on my mind, I'll check things in the middle of the night for sure. Like I'm definitely not perfect, but I think when I'm with people, I try as much as I can to be like, no phones while you and I are together, so that like I am present. Whereas, definitely on my own, I'm like, okay, let's check who's responded to whatever it is that I need to manage. That's what I find the hard part to do, just when I'm in my own time.
Yeah, no, I think my own time as well is when it's worse. I find myself going into like a black hole of just like non-stop working, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 4 a.m. Whoops. Didn't mean to not sleep tonight.
I think you and I are opposite in that sense, because I can't work at night. I'm an early morning. So like I'm way more likely to be up at 6 doing like random stuff, being like, all right, I couldn't sleep, so I'm just going to wake up really early to just get ahead of the day.
Good though. Like it's productive. You're starting your day. I'm like a night owl, so it means my whole kind of schedule is just later than everyone.
Well, the good news is if we lived together, we would drive each other insane because
oh my God. Yeah, it's true. We just would never see each other. There'd be no interaction.
No, there would be no interaction.
Getting up. Yeah.
So healthy that you live with someone and you're like, I never see you. And I'm assuming everything's good. Or there's like those 2 hours in the middle that we cross over.
Yeah. You kind of make it work. I feel like you're just checking in. My housemate and I, not so much this year, but last year when I was shooting the show and the movie and stuff that I was on, I would just, yeah, very rarely see her and the schedule would constantly change. So every now and then we just send a text like, you good? You alive? What's happening? Check in.
So, how is it living with someone? How do you think it is? Like from your housemate's perspective, I'm not sure if they're in the creative fields either, but how is it living with you, for example, someone who doesn't have like regular hours, someone who is gone all times? Like, how do you think that is, like that experience?
I mean, it's hard. Like, I don't know if I can answer for her, but she did say like she finds it quite fascinating because she is in like a 9 to 5 position. Um, so yeah, it's just really interesting. And I think for both of us, we quite like the differences between worlds because I get to see a different type of lifestyle and vice versa. But I think definitely when I first moved in, because I moved in as I was kind of starting the show, and we're doing like 12 to 14 hour shoot days, 5 days a
Damn.
week, and it changes. So, one day you might start at 11 in the morning, finish at 11 at night. We were doing night shoots for a while. I'd start at 4 p.m., wouldn't finish till 5 a.m., would get home by 6 a.m., go to sleep. She's getting up, like hasn't seen me
Yeah.
at all. Um, and yeah, it's like a little weird, but it just became the norm, I guess, for us.
Well,
Yeah.
how does your body adapt? I like routine. I like that I know I'm going to get up at similar times. Like I like knowing my thing. And then if it was like, oh, 1 week is this and the next week is that, and 1 week, like I'm not sure how well I would adapt to those extreme
Yeah.
changes. Like, how did you adapt to those changes?
You don't. You don't adapt. The night shoots, we would be going crazy, like loco. It would hit maybe, yeah, 1 a.m. and everyone's just lost their marbles. And you're trying to like film these serious scenes and then they'd call cut and everyone just starts laughing for no apparent reason. But I don't know, like, yeah, we were working really, really hard. I guess it was good in the sense that the way that production had organized it and our like third AD, I think, was doing a lot of the scheduling was, so as we were going in to do a week where it was 4 p.m. starts going into the evening, the week before that, they would set our starts later. So it'd be like, you'd start at midday instead of starting at 6
Yeah.
a.m. So they would try and gradually, like each week, okay, now we're getting later so that it wasn't so abrupt. Like you're going from 6 a.m. starts to then like starting in the afternoon. But yeah, you don't really adapt. You just kind of have to make do. And I think because it was so intense, the shooting schedule, I would be so exhausted that it didn't really matter what time I got home. I would just fall asleep. I was
Yeah.
like, let me sleep. I need my rest. Yeah.
Yeah. And what time would you wake? Like, so you'd get home at about 6 ish. And what time would you get up?
Um, you'd usually have about maybe six. Well, if you were doing it, I guess the next day, it just depends. It depends. So I'd get home 6 a.m., shower, potentially eat something, probably not at that time, go to bed and then wake up for a 4 p.m. call again. So I'd be up at like 3 p.m. I don't know how many hours that is, but I'd be asleep pretty much that whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is wild. You just see the planet is different when you live that
Yeah,
life.
it is. It really is. But I kind of like it. Like I thrive on it. I like routine, but I get bored when I'm in the same routine for too long. So I like the routine, but it needs to change up. Otherwise, I'm like, I feel like I'm in prison.
Okay. So the life of an artist really does suit you because that
Yeah.
is the life of an artist is like, there's no net normal.
Yes. I quite like it because I think it keeps things interesting.
What do you think you would be doing if you weren't a musician and artist?
This is a question I have been pondering recently.
Mm.
I feel like I've always been interested in psychology. I initially, when I was leaving school, I got in for like early entry in uni to do a Bachelor of Journalism, like media and
Awesome.
communications and journalism. That was also something I was interested in. Or maybe this sounds so random, but an archaeologist, because I've always been really interested in ancient history. So there's a few other areas that I feel like I had interest in, but none that I had the passion or like I can't see myself being as committed or determined in those industries as I am in this one. Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good thing. But welcome to a new deviation we're about to take, which is the history podcast. Because I find it fascinating. I've always found it fascinating as well at school.
Yeah.
And one of my friends' girlfriends is an archaeologist as well.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah,
Cool.
it is
What's
so
her
cool.
life like? Like what I want to, we need to get her on. We need
Yeah.
to call her up, get her to join. I have questions.
Well, apparently it's quite hard to get an archaeologist job, which is
Yeah.
what she said. And I was like, I guess there's probably not that many ads for archaeologists on LinkedIn and stuff like that now that I
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah. Like where do you go to find those positions?
I
I've
actually
never
have
really
no
thought
idea.
that far ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least you have a connection now. If you ever want to head to that field, we know who to talk to, or at least I know who to talk to.
I've got the link up. That's good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
to know.
What about it? What about ancient history fascinated you?
I think I love pondering questions that I can't answer. And I
Okay.
think in a lot of like ancient history, there's so much that's been lost to time, that hasn't been unearthed yet. And I really find that fascinating. It's like I want to try and find the evidence or the proof of something that does not exist. So in high school, we studied, I did ancient and modern history, but I always preferred ancient history. I just find like, like the Grecian mythology and Grecian culture and stuff like that, like Pompeii. Yeah, it's just really interesting. And I always wonder what other periods of time have been lost that we don't even know about. I
Mm,
just think that's really cool. Yeah.
I agree. I've always thought if I was religious, the Greek
Mm.
gods had to be the coolest gods to like believe
Absolutely.
in. Because
Hands
like
down.
they're like us. They're like they bicker and they fight and they have these human qualities and they're jealous and they hate each other. And I'm like, I get that. I can learn